On the day of my wedding to Simon Sterling, the woman he hated most called him for help. "See, save me, I've been kidnapped." He loved me more than life itself, yet he loathed Grace Green. This was because I had once acted bravely to save Grace, only to be injured and fall into a vegetative state, sleeping for 3 long years. Because of this, he took his anger out on her and detested her to the extreme. 3 years later, when I woke up, he held me, unable to hide his excitement. "Wendy, we can finally be together forever." He still loved me as he did before, but I noticed his gaze frequently drifting toward Grace Green. On the day of the wedding, he looked at me with guilt. "I'm sorry, I have to go save Grace. She was kidnapped because of me." I was forced to face the reality of his change of heart, but I made one last attempt to make him stay. Leaving her rescue to the police is an option. Simon Sterling, think this through. If you leave now, the wedding is canceled immediately. He didn't hesitate at all. "My heart only holds you, Wendy. I will definitely come back to marry you. This wedding will absolutely not be canceled." After saying that, he abandoned me at the wedding venue, leaving everyone in the city to laugh at me. I took off my veil and walked step by step toward his youngest uncle in the guest seats, smiling softly. Simon was right. I don't intend to cancel the wedding, but who the groom is doesn't matter. Simon saved Grace Green. It wasn't until he had stayed with her in the hospital for 7 days that he remembered me, the fiancé he had abandoned on our wedding day. By the time he wanted to find me to fulfill the engagement, I had already returned from my honeymoon. Later, he searched for me frantically on a night of torrential rain, only to see me standing before him with another man. The man was gentle and elegant, yet his eyes were freezing cold. "Simon, call her aunt?" Pain, a piercing pain shot through me as I slowly opened my eyes. 3 years ago, I was about to hold my wedding with Simon Sterling. Just as I was immersed in the joy of becoming his bride, an accident happened. That day, while preparing wedding favors, I happened to see Grace Green being abused by her boyfriend. I stepped in to help her. She was tearfully grateful to me, yet she remained entangled with that man. In the end, her boyfriend blamed everything on me. He ambushed me on my way to work, waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. The night before the wedding, I fell into a pool of blood at the alley entrance and became a vegetable. This slumber lasted for 3 years. "Miss Winslow, you're finally awake," a familiar crying voice sounded in my ear. I opened my eyes to see Mrs. Higgins looking at me with teary eyes, frantically pressing the nurse call button. Doctor, Our Lady has woken up." Mrs. Higgins grabbed my hand, weeping with joy. "Miss Winslow, you're finally awake. I'll tell Mr. Sterling right away. You don't know, in the 3 years you've been asleep, Mr. Sterling became a shell of a man, so depressed at times he didn't want to live. He stayed with you every day, finding the best medical teams to treat you. He even personally handled your food, clothing, and care, never letting anyone else touch you. I knew Simon treated me well and loved me deeply. If not for the accident 3 years ago, we would have been husband and wife long ago." Hearing Mrs. Higgins say this, much of the confusion and fear I felt upon waking dissipated. I leaned against the headboard, my voice still weak. "Mrs. Higgins, where is Simon? Since he had guarded me day and night, why didn't I see him the moment I woke up?" Mrs. Higgins' expression suddenly became complicated. She fell silent, not speaking for a long time. Just as I wondered if something had happened to Simon, she sighed. "It's all because of that jinx. Grace Green." Mr. Sterling went to clean up her mess again. She rambled on, full of dissatisfaction with Grace. "Mr. Sterling hates that woman the most. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't have been turned into a vegetable by her ex-boyfriend. She's caused trouble everywhere these past few years, and it's always Mr. Sterling who handles it for her. Mr. Sterling hates her guts. He's disgusted just seeing her." Hearing these words, I fell silent. If Simon truly loathed someone, would he help her time and time again? Everyone said he loved me deeply, and I believed it. But at the critical moment of my waking, he was by the side of Grace Green, the woman he supposedly hated most. I shook my head, tossing this absurd thought out of my mind. Perhaps he didn't know I would wake up today, I told myself. "How are you feeling?" A low, mellow voice sounded from above. I looked up to meet a pair of deep, ink-black eyes. Those eyes were pitch black and profound, like a deep, cold pool with no visible bottom. I shook my head, my voice hoarse. "Everything is fine. Thank you, Uncle Quentin." The man stiffened slightly. Even wearing a white doctor's coat, it couldn't hide his tall, 6'2" frame. His handsome face was hidden behind a mask, sculpted and refined, with a clean, sharp jawline. His name was Quentin Vance, Simon's youngest uncle. Although he was of the uncle generation, he was only 5 years older than us. I heard he didn't like inheriting the family business and was dedicated to medicine. After I fell into a vegetative state, I had been recuperating in the hospital where he worked. The current examination shows no issues. Rest well, and remember to come to the hospital for checkups if there are any problems. Quentin took off his mask and suddenly frowned. "Where is Simon?" Before I could speak, Mrs. Higgins explained. "It's that woman named Grace Green causing trouble for Mr. Sterling again all these years. He's always cleaning up her messes, sometimes even neglecting Miss Winslow. That woman is just bad luck." My heart stung slightly, and I subconsciously said, "Don't say that. Simon went voluntarily." Both of them looked at me instinctively, especially Quentin, whose eyes held deep meaning. The atmosphere became subtle for a moment. Mrs. Higgins seemed to realize she had misspoken and looked at me carefully. "Miss Winslow, don't be angry. I just spoke without thinking Mr. Sterling cares about you the most. If you hadn't saved Grace Green back then, and if he didn't want your good intentions to go to waste, he wouldn't even spare a glance at that woman. He hates her the most every time he sees her. He's annoyed." I took a deep breath to calm myself and said to her, "It's okay, I didn't overthink it." I also hoped that I was overthinking it. After all, I knew best how Simon treated me. He was even willing to give his life for me. For 3 years, he never left my side. What reason did I have to doubt him? By the time I finished my physical examination, an hour had passed. It wasn't until 9 o'clock at night that Simon burst through the door. "Wendy," he called my name, appearing at the door of the ward. Dressed in a black suit, he looked lean and elegant. He was still the same man from 3 years ago, but he seemed to have become more mature. I looked at him with a smile, studying him closely. "Simon, it's been a hard 3 years for you." For these 3 years, he had accompanied me day and night, exhausting himself and worrying endlessly for me. Because of this, a trace of haggardness and weathering stained his handsome brow. Simon could no longer hold back. With red-rimmed eyes, he rushed in and pulled me into his arms. "Wendy, never leave me again." His strength was so great, as if he wanted to crush me into his bones and blood. It hurt a little being held so tight. "We'll get married immediately. I never want to lose you again," Simon declared in my ear with a hoarse voice, like a vow. My heart stirred. It would be a lie to say I wasn't moved. Just as I was about to agree, I looked up and saw a woman with a desolate expression standing in the corner of the doorway. Her face was full of hurt and sadness as she looked sorrowfully at Simon's back, her eyes filled with emotions that were about to overflow. If I remembered correctly, she was the woman I saved 3 years ago, Grace Green. Seeing that I hadn't spoken for a while, Simon frowned slightly. As if having a premonition, he followed my gaze and also saw Grace at the door. In that instant, I could feel the strength of his embrace tighten abruptly. Unlike the lingering affection from before, his hug became incredibly stiff. It wasn't until I made a weak sound, "Simon, you're hurting me." Only then did he realize and let go of me. "Sorry." He lowered his head, his eyes full of apology, distressingly checking my arm where bruises were forming. "Wendy, it's all my fault. I got too carried away." Mrs. Higgins chimed in. "Mr. Sterling was just too excited you slept for 3 years and finally woke up. He was terrified you'd disappear again. Is that so?" I looked up, gave a faint smile, and gazed into Simon's eyes. He cupped my face. His eyes, usually cold to others, were filled with deep affection meant only for me. "What silly things are you saying? Of course it is." In this moment, his eyes held only me, but in that split second of distraction just now, who were you thinking of? Grace knew we had seen her. After hesitating for a moment, she walked in. "Miss Winslow, you're awake? That's wonderful," she smiled at me, but her expression was timid, as if she both respected and feared me. Simon frowned, seeming very impatient with her. "Didn't I tell you to go home? Why did you follow me here?" Grace stood there timidly, offering no explanation, only looking down and twisting the hem of her clothes. Just like how she looked when I saw her 3 years ago, fragile, easily broken. I spoke, my voice very light. "It's okay, sit down." Simon still had a steely expression, as if he were extremely dissatisfied with her presence here. Naturally, Grace dared not say much. She stood there awkwardly, looking like she was about to cry. Helpless, I sighed and looked at Simon. She didn't do anything wrong, don't treat her like that. Simon's tone was cold. She knows she can't do anything right, yet she always tries to be brave. What is she doing following me? She's just annoying. Mrs. Higgins couldn't help but chime in. Mr. Sterling is right, Miss Green. You really know how to cause trouble. It's better if you don't show up in the future. Your bad luck. As soon as the words fell, Simon looked coldly at Mrs. Higgins. Since when is it your turn to speak here? Not only Mrs. Higgins, but even I was stunned. Mrs. Higgins was my person and had taken care of me for many years. Simon had always been respectful to her and spoke kindly. I never expected him to speak harsh words to her just now. I pursed my lips, feeling a bit stifled in my chest. I didn't know if it was my illusion, but although Simon clearly showed disgust toward Grace, he seemed to only allow himself to bully her. If anyone else dared to say anything about Grace, he would jump out to defend her. Simon, Mrs. Higgins indeed shouldn't have said that about Miss Green. I apologized to Miss Green on her behalf. Simon suddenly snapped out of it. He looked at me instinctively, a flash of panic in his eyes. Wendy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. His eyes darkened, and he looked at Grace with some revulsion. Not leaving yet? Must you disturb us? Grace's eyes reddened, tears threatening to fall, but she held them back and said hoarsely, I just wanted to confirm that Miss Winslow is okay and thank her in person. Miss Winslow, thank you for saving me back then. It's okay. I smiled gently. That man isn't bothering you anymore, is he? Grace wiped away a tear and smiled brightly. Thanks to Mr. Sterling, Chad hasn't come to trouble me for a long time. Simon's face darkened. If you are stupid enough to associate with him again, even if he beats you to death, I won't collect your body. Grace's expression became timid again. I won't. The stifled feeling in my chest grew heavier. I didn't know if I was overthinking, but why did I feel that despite Simon acting like he hated Grace, there was an atmosphere between them that I couldn't penetrate? After everyone else left, only Simon and I remained in the ward. Unlike the cold indifference he showed in front of others, he was always easygoing and indulgent in front of me. Wendy, now that you're awake, don't leave me again. When he gazed at me with such deep affection, the strange feeling between him and Grace from earlier slowly faded. I had to suspect, was I just overthinking it? After all, these gentle eyes looking at me right now couldn't lie, nor would they deceive. I knew what he looked like when he loved me, so I was also certain that he still loved me, just as in the beginning. Okay, I won't be so impulsive again. I suppressed the strange feeling in my heart and leaned into his embrace. Bayview Villa, the car stopped at the entrance. Simon opened the door and carried me out directly. I exclaimed, "Put me down, I can walk." But Simon insisted, 3 years ago, I wanted to carry you into our wedding home. This time, don't let my hope fall through. My heart ached, and I couldn't help but stroke the side of his face. Yes, he had waited for me for 3 whole years. Simon turned his head to kiss my fingers, his breath warm. Wendy, I want to marry you. I can't wait any longer. Holding me, he strode inside. Tomorrow, I will announce to the whole city that the wedding is back on. Shadows swayed in the night, tree silhouettes dancing. I didn't expect that the wedding home from 3 years ago hadn't changed a bit. It was exactly as it was before my accident. Whether it was the decor in the hall, the high spiral staircase, the wall-to-wall carpeting covering the entire villa, or even the paintings on the walls, nothing had moved an inch. Simon hugged me from behind, his breath warm. Your roses have bloomed. I was pleasantly surprised. Is the rose garden still there? I had planted that myself 3 years ago as the beginning of our marriage. Of course. He brushed aside my hair, his expression incredibly serious. Every day, I would come over personally to tend to them because I knew that when you woke up, you wouldn't want to see a desolate wasteland. My throat felt tight. He had to deal with company affairs and accompany me in my vegetative state every day, yet he still thought to tend to my rose garden. My earlier suspicions about him and Grace seemed so ridiculous now. Simon, I will never leave you again. His breathing gradually became chaotic, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down, unable to restrain himself from kissing me. Help! A scream rang out, and Simon's movements paused. We both froze and looked toward the sound. It seems to be coming from the backyard, I frowned. Did something happen to the housekeeper? Simon looked grim, but not the least bit surprised. "Wait here for me. I'll be back after I handle it." With that, his face darkened, and he strode toward the backyard. I followed him with some confusion. The sound seemed to come from the rose garden. A familiar figure was thrashing and struggling in the flower bushes, crying out for help. "It hurts!" I stopped in my tracks. That person was clearly Grace Green. Dressed in a pure white gauze dress, she was entangled by rose vines. Her clothes were snagged and torn, and as she struggled helplessly, her arms were scratched and bleeding. Simon looked furious. He rushed over and scooped her up. "Idiot who let you come here," Grace stood up, shrinking back, her voice sounding guilty. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to help tend to Miss Winslow's rose garden." Simon's expression changed, but he remained stern. "How many times have I told you I don't need you to do these things? You'll only hurt yourself and make a mess," Grace argued self-righteously. "But I just wanted to repay Miss Winslow. What does it have to do with you?" After speaking, Grace looked at me with guilt. "Miss Winslow, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. I can't repay your kindness, so I can only do these small things to give back." I walked over and said softly, "It's okay, as long as you're not hurt." But Simon was still furious, looking at Grace with disgust. "If you can't do anything right, just stay put honestly. Don't always cause trouble for others." Although he spoke harsh words, I saw him staring intently at Grace's bleeding wounds. My heart, which had been warm just moments ago, suddenly went cold. Perhaps others couldn't see clearly, but I saw it distinctly. Simon was feeling sorry for her. Grace ran away crying. Simon's words were truly harsh. She couldn't bear it and fled with red eyes. My voice became much fainter. "It's late, let's go back." Simon hadn't recovered yet. He stared darkly in the direction Grace had left, his eyes full of disgust, but the grip on my arm kept tightening. I knew he was worried about her. "Simon," I raised my volume, my tone growing colder. Only then did Simon snap out of it, looking at me guiltily. "I'm sorry. She ruined your roses. I'll make it up to you." He thought I was angry because Grace's clumsiness had damaged the rose garden. I smiled faintly, but there wasn't much warmth in it. "It's okay, Simon. Roses that have been touched by others, I just don't want them anymore. There's no need to be angry." His face froze for a second. I slowly pulled my hand away and looked at him seriously. "Simon, you know me. I've always been stubborn. If what you give me is the same as what you give others, then I'd rather not have it at all." That had always been my nature. I only liked things that belonged exclusively to me. I didn't want half-hearted affection. I wanted unique profundity. Simon's face darkened for a moment, then he hugged me tightly, his voice hoarse. "I am yours alone forever. Okay." I reached out and hugged him back. I had slept for 3 years. Many things had happened during these 3 years. For instance, Simon had cleaned up countless messes for Grace. Grace appeared grateful and wanted to contribute to what Simon was doing for me, but she messed up every time, and Simon would clean up after her with a dark face. Everyone said Simon hated Grace. Even Simon himself thought so. Such a stupid woman, I don't know what was so good about saving her back then, wasting 3 years of your life lying there. I looked at him with a smile. "If I hadn't saved her, she would have been beaten to death. Would you have been okay with that?" Simon went stiff all over and immediately hugged me tighter. "What nonsense are you talking about?" He placed a kiss on top of my head. "How can she compare to you? Wendy, tomorrow is the wedding. I can finally marry you." He seemed to be sighing with emotion, yet also with satisfaction. "Starting tomorrow, you will be Mrs. Sterling." I wanted to believe him too. The way this man loved me was exactly the same as before, unchanged. The difference was that he, who had always been cold-hearted and stern in front of outsiders, would actually show uncontrolled emotions in front of Grace. Even if it was just annoyance and impatience. But she had already become that exception. Wedding day. This wedding was 3 years late. All the details had been prepared, so the proceedings went very smoothly. Simon stood before me, looking more handsome than ever. On the stage, we stood facing each other. Below the stage were all our friends and family. This grand wedding mobilized half the manpower of the city and was even broadcast live across the entire city. But with so many people present, it was as if he could only see me. "Mr. Simon Sterling, do you take Miss Wendy Winslow to be your wife, to stay by her side regardless of poverty or wealth, sickness or health?" The corners of his eyes reddened. Just as he was about to answer, a piercing sound suddenly came from the speakers, followed by a woman's cry for help. "See, save me," it was Grace crying. Simon's expression changed instantly. "Grace, what happened to you?" "See, save me, that man is back, he says he's going to kill me." The signal was quickly cut off and replaced by an arrogant male voice. "Simon Sterling, come and pay the ransom right now, otherwise, you will never see Grace Green again." Simon panicked and instinctively moved to throw away the wedding ring. My heart ached, and I grabbed his hand. "Simon, what are you doing?" He looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry, I have to go save Grace. She's so stupid and clumsy. If I don't go save her, she'll really lose her life." My eyes reddened, holding back the stinging sensation in my nose. "Saving her is a matter for the police. Even if you go, you won't be of much use. Even so, are you still going?" He pondered for only a split second. "She's so dumb and foolish. If I don't go, she'll definitely be terrified." I was forced to face the fact of his change of heart, my voice trembling slightly. "Simon, even if going to save her now subjects me to everyone's ridicule, makes it impossible for me to hold my head up in this city, and turns my family into a laughingstock, are you still going to abandon me to find her?" This time, he didn't even hesitate. "I'm sorry, Wendy. I will make up for everything you mentioned. The one I want to marry has always been only you. Wait for me." I slowly clenched my fists, my gaze gradually turning cold. "Simon Sterling, think this through. If you leave, the wedding is canceled immediately." His footsteps paused only for a moment. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he turned and left without hesitation. A cold tide instantly drowned me, pulling me into a vortex of darkness, making it painful to breathe. Reporters swarmed in. Within a day, the news of Simon Sterling running away from his wedding would spread throughout the city. As the jilted bride, the protagonist abandoned in public, I was bound to become the topic of everyone's conversation. I stood rooted to the spot, watching his retreating back. Those camera flashes, originally prepared for me, now became sharp knives stabbing at me. I stood amidst everyone's gaze, with nowhere to hide. The blade symbolizing being publicly abandoned by the groom swung down directly, leaving me bloody and mangled. The groom actually ran away on the spot. What is going on? Aren't they the golden couple? Simon used to love Wendy madly. I even envied her. As expected, there's no such thing as a man who doesn't change his heart. Even if he changed his heart, he shouldn't do this. This is fleeing a wedding, leaving Wendy alone on stage. That's too much. I'm curious. Who is this holy being that could make a man who loved Wendy so much run away from his own wedding for her? Voices were chaotic, all discussing my situation. My back felt cold, as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. Their eyes looked at me with schadenfreude, pity, or frequent head shaking, looking at me with compassionate gazes as if I were such a pitiful person. I used to envy Wendy. Even after she became a vegetable, Simon never left her side. He took care of her for 3 whole years without looking at another woman. I didn't expect him to get involved with someone else. I heard that woman is the one Wendy bravely saved back then, while Wendy was a vegetable. That woman often hung around Simon. One thing led to another, and the two of them just. To be honest, Simon might as well have found an unrelated woman. Isn't this twisting the knife in Wendy's heart? I wonder if Wendy regrets saving that Grace Green now. My dad was blue in the face with anger. He rushed onto the stage and grabbed my hand. "Let's go, Wendy. We won't take this insult." He had always favored Simon as a son-in-law, but at this moment, he was so angry his eyes were red. William Winslow's daughter will not lose face like this. Simon's parents also stood up, looking at me apologetically. "Wendy, we are truly sorry. This matter is Simon's fault. I apologize to you on his behalf." Mrs. Sterling looked full of guilt, trying to appease my parents. "This is all Simon's fault. Our Sterling family won't shirk responsibility, but considering how Simon took care of Wendy for so many years, can you give him a chance?" Frederick Sterling also spoke with authority. "Simon has you in his heart, otherwise he wouldn't have sworn to you that he would come back to continue the marriage contract, nor would he ask you to wait for him. I believe he must have his own difficulties. What kind of difficulties allow him to publicly abandon my daughter?" Father's face was grim, refusing to accept their explanation. Everyone heard it just now. That woman called him to save her life, but he is neither a police officer nor anyone to that Grace Green. At most, He's the fiancé of her benefactor. What standing does Simon have to abandon Wendy to save her? Father laid out my identity as her benefactor, and the venue fell silent. They seemed to remember why I became a vegetable, because I saved Grace Green. But unexpectedly, years later, my wedding was put on hold again, and it was because of her once more. Mrs. Sterling couldn't save face and couldn't help but say, "We've already apologized to you for Simon. We'll have to wait for him to come back to discuss the specifics." No need to discuss. I shook my head, interrupting her, and walked in front of my father, shielding him. Years ago, I acted bravely but put myself in danger. I only cared about fulfilling my own kindness, forgetting that I also had family to care for. Now, standing in front of my father, seeing his hair slightly graying, my heart soured. I held back my tears. It was time to stand on my own. I said it very clearly just now. The moment Simon stepped forward, the wedding was canceled. I quickly gathered my emotions, my voice decisive. The entire venue was in an uproar. The Sterling parents' faces looked terrible. Frederick Sterling scolded me directly. "What nonsense are you making? Your marriage has been set for so long. How can you cancel it just like that? Everyone is watching. Wendy, you can't be willful," I sneered. "The person who abandoned me on the spot and ran away isn't willful. Yet you accuse me of being willful. I know people protect their own, but not blindly like this." Mrs. Sterling paused in her attempt to scold me, her eyes suddenly reddening. "Wendy, it's not that we don't want to speak fairly for you, but the situation is urgent right now, and we are truly upset too." She wiped her tears. "You know clearly that he is a kind, good boy, otherwise he wouldn't have waited bitterly for you for so many years. Even when you became a vegetable, he didn't leave you. It's understandable that he wants to save Grace Green." Frederick immediately understood her meaning, and the two exchanged a look. "Your mother is right. The most important thing now should be ensuring Simon and Grace's safety." Grace said on the phone she was kidnapped, and Simon rushed over to save her. As Simon's fiancé, your first reaction isn't worry for his safety, but to break the engagement. Does that do justice to his care for you over these 3 years? Truly worthy of being a smiling tiger in the business world. He started by directly calling Mrs. Sterling your mother, treating me as a member of their family, but then quickly slapped me down, warning me that I shouldn't make a fuss at a time like this, and should instead worry about Simon's personal safety. I gave a cold laugh and removed the bouquet from my hand. First, the wedding was not completed. I am not a member of the Sterling family. Simon's mother is not my mother. Second, kidnapping is a matter that should be left to professional police for rescue. Not causing trouble and providing effective evidence is already the wisest choice. Simon is surrounded by bodyguards and went there from the wedding venue. Unless he puts himself in danger, his bodyguards won't let him come to harm. If he were really going to his death, you two wouldn't be sitting here, would you? After all, Simon is your only son. The Sterling parents were instantly silenced, their faces turning incredibly ugly. My gaze was indifferent. Finally, the reason Simon was so impulsive is simply that his concern for Grace has clouded his judgment. This is his own choice. He chose to risk danger for love. What else can I say? The two remained silent. I turned around, but Frederick called me in a low voice. "Wendy, think clearly. If the wedding is canceled, won't the cooperation between the Sterling and Winslow families be canceled too? For the Sterling family, it's just a loss of some money. For your declining Winslow family, it's a devastating blow." Mrs. Sterling also darkened her face. "While we are still willing to give you face, let's give each other an out. Wendy, you should know how important this wedding is." The two finally couldn't be bothered to pretend anymore and revealed their hypocritical true colors. Compared to their son and the Sterling family's interests, what did my humiliation count for? Father was so angry his eyes were red. He rebuked, "Our Winslow family hasn't fallen so low as to sacrifice our daughter's dignity for profit, even if it's a devastating blow. I won't let others laugh at Wendy." I took a deep breath and walked to my father's side. "Dad, they are right. The wedding cannot be canceled." Father's expression changed, full of disapproval. I shook my head at him, signaling him to trust me. Then I took off my veil and looked down from the stage. Guests filled the seats, the whole city watching. They gave me such a grand wedding, making me the envy of every woman in the city. Yet they also let a groom flee in front of so many people, reducing me to a laughingstock. So this is the evidence of a man's change of heart. I gave a bleak smile, my gaze locking onto a figure below the stage. Everyone looked at me with sympathy, ridicule, pity, or scorn. Only he remained indifferent, not even a ripple in his eyes. That was Simon's uncle, Quentin Vance, the most noble man in the room. I walked up to him and threw the veil at his feet. The wedding continues. Quentin raised his eyes slightly, gave me a glance, and uttered, "Hum?" While everyone else was shocked, he remained perfectly composed. I looked into his eyes. "Quentin, will you marry me?" Quentin just sat there, looking calm and relaxed, as if he had already guessed where things were heading. He lifted his eyelids, looking at me with a half smile. "Think clearly. I am Simon's uncle." The crowd finally snapped out of it, looking at me with shocked expressions. Frederick was even more furious. "Wendy, are you crazy?" Mrs. Sterling was also shocked. "I know you're upset about Simon running away, but you can't just choose any man to marry," I smiled faintly. "Of course I'm not choosing just any man. Uncle Quentin, to me, is the best man." Frederick raged, "You know he's your uncle." Shameless, my father also looked at me in astonishment. "Wendy, Dad knows you're angry. If you want to cancel the wedding, Dad supports you absolutely, but—" After speaking, he looked at Quentin with a complicated expression. Quentin was indeed Simon's youngest uncle, but he wasn't old less than 30, only a few years older than Simon, yet a whole generation higher in rank. The Sterling family was the most prominent noble family in the city. The patriarch had many children. Simon's father was the fifth son, but Simon was the eldest grandson. Many felt Simon was the outstanding one among the grandchildren and would definitely inherit the family business. But unexpectedly, the patriarch favored Quentin, the child of his old age, the most. The fifth son, Simon's father, had once fought a bloody path through a battle for succession to seize his share of the inheritance. But he felt it wasn't nearly enough. He needed more assets to fill his ambition. The patriarch disliked this dominance and intentionally curbed the fifth son's family. But unexpectedly, the fifth son was the first to produce a legitimate eldest grandson, Simon. And this grandson was exceptionally capable, a favored child from youth, assisting the family with various affairs before he was even of age. Even if the patriarch was unwilling to relinquish power, with the assistance of Simon and his father, he had to start leaning toward the fifth family. It was at this time that Quentin was suddenly recognized back into the Sterling family. His return represented a massive shift in the family structure. Everyone thought he was an illegitimate child of the patriarch, but no one expected Quentin to be the child of the patriarch's first wife. The patriarch had many romantic debts in his early years. It was said that before he built his empire from scratch, he had already married a wife, his original spouse. But like most stories of men rising to power, the wife who accompanied him through hardship eventually became the discarded wife. They originally had a child, but rumor had it the child died young. Later, the patriarch founded the Sterling Group single-handedly, becoming the richest man in the city. He had numerous offspring and countless women, openly and secretly. But unexpectedly, in his old age, he was alone. However, even so, it was enough. After all, his descendants were too many to count. No one in the circle knew the identity of that first wife, and honestly, few cared to know. After all, she was just an abandoned woman. Unexpectedly, years later, the patriarch experienced a revival. At over 50, he actually reunited with his original wife and even had a youngest son, Quentin. Quentin was only a few years older than the eldest grandson. At first, everyone thought Quentin was an illegitimate child. But when his mother's identity was exposed, everyone fell silent. Quentin was taken back to the Sterling family, but he still kept his mother's surname, Vance. Frederick naturally opposed strongly. Seeing all the inheritance about to fall into his hands, suddenly, a Quentin popped up to fight for the heir position with him and Simon. He viewed Quentin as a thorn in his side. "Father, even if he is the child of your first wife, what does he have to do with the Sterling family? Although he is your flesh and blood, he doesn't have the surname Sterling. Why is he qualified to inherit the family assets?" "Shut up, you unfilial son," his answer was a slap from the patriarch. "Even if he doesn't have the surname Sterling, he is my own flesh and blood. Why is he not qualified to inherit my property? I'm not dead yet, and you're staring at my assets all day. Do you have any respect for me as your father?" The patriarch flew into a rage, and Frederick could only cease fire, daring not to act rashly again. But suddenly having to split the inheritance that was already in hand with a relative he wasn't familiar with naturally, he was unconvinced. The two families had clashed secretly and openly many times. Quentin coming to attend Simon's wedding was merely to maintain surface harmony, not wanting the patriarch to look bad. Father sighed heavily, holding my hand, and whispered in my ear, "Even if you are angry, you can't drag Quentin into this. You know his relationship with the Sterling family is complicated." I interrupted him. "Father, you heard them just now. We cannot withdraw from the marriage." I raised my head and looked fearlessly at the couple standing before me. For our Winslow family, withdrawing would be a devastating blow. We must unite with someone from the Sterling family to save our enterprise. But as for who we unite with, is that up to them? Wendy, you also know the Winslow family needs this marriage. It's not our Simon begging to marry you, but you needing him to marry you. Before I finished, Frederick interrupted me directly, his face livid. "Since you know what's good for you, don't say things about canceling the wedding just to spite Simon." Mrs. Sterling also stepped forward, her initial guilt turning into impatience. "Wendy, we spoke nicely to you just now. Simon put a lot of effort into taking care of you while you were a vegetable all these years. He also swore to you that he would definitely come back to marry you. Why must you hold on to this small matter of him running away?" I laughed instantly. "So that's it. Simon running away from the wedding has become my fault?" I paused. "You're right. I never intended to cancel the engagement." Their expressions softened a lot. Just as they were about to speak, I continued to look at Quentin in front of me. "Simon isn't the only man in the Sterling family available for marriage." I took another step forward, looking into Quentin's eyes. "Mr. Vance, you haven't answered my question yet. Are you willing to marry me?" The entire venue was deathly silent. It seemed no one expected I was actually serious. "Wendy," after reacting, Frederick shouted loudly, "I didn't hold it against you when you said such outrageous things out of spite earlier. But if you really trample my Sterling family's face on the ground, don't blame me for being ruthless." I didn't look at him. Instead, I stared fixedly at Quentin. Mrs. Sterling beside him tugged at Frederick's arm, looking at me with disdain. "Forget it. Let her continue. Quentin has always been arrogant and uninterested in women. Being proposed to by Wendy in such a setting, do you think he'll agree? It's just letting more people laugh at Wendy. All right, let's get married." Before Mrs. Sterling could finish, Quentin interrupted her indifferently, looking at me with a half smile. Those rippling peach blossom eyes held an incredibly cold undertone, looking both affectionate and heartless. I saw Frederick and Mrs. Sterling's faces turn utterly ugly, stiff yet daring not to speak out in anger, only able to look at Quentin while trying to suppress it. "Quentin, what is the meaning of this?" "No meaning." Quentin looked at me indifferently, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Didn't you say you wanted to get married? Why aren't you coming over?" I instantly breathed a sigh of relief, walked to his side, and placed my hand in his palm. "Then I'll be in your care, Uncle Quentin." I whispered the last two words in his ear, my voice very light. Quentin glanced at me, his face expressionless, and chuckled lightly. "You are quite bold. Weren't you afraid I'd refuse you?" This was a risky move. If Quentin had refused me, I would have become the biggest joke in the venue. I didn't speak, but only I could feel the sweat in my palms. No one knew how nervous I was, but I could only maintain a surface calm. "But you agreed, didn't you?" He seemed to see through my disguise and didn't say anything more. Holding my wrist, he looked into my eyes and said word by word, "Since there's a ready-made wedding, let's get married right now. What do you think?" The venue was deathly silent again. No one made a sound. I saw Frederick and Mrs. Sterling's faces turn almost green and inexplicably felt satisfied. I took Quentin's arm. He stood up, tall and straight in a black suit. Standing beside me, he really looked like a prepared groom. I looked into his eyes and finally relaxed, stepping onto the stage under everyone's gaze. Before going up, he lowered his head and whispered a sentence in my ear. "Actually, you knew I would agree long ago, right?" I was stunned for a moment and looked at him instinctively. But Quentin simply withdrew his gaze indifferently and stood in the center of the stage. I gathered my thoughts and looked at the crowd below with a smile. The wedding continued, just as Mrs. Sterling and Frederick said, even if Simon ran away, the wedding had to go on. The Winslow family still needed this wedding to maintain our already precarious status. I woke up after sleeping for 3 years. Perhaps in many people's eyes, I was an utter invalid. Starting today, I had to let them know that even with a 3-year blank, it didn't stop me from still being Wendy Winslow. The vows originally meant for Simon, I gave them all to another man. Witnessed by everyone, we exchanged rings. Miss Wendy Winslow, are you willing to marry Quentin Vance as your husband, to stay by his side regardless of poverty or wealth, health or sickness, to grow old together? I do, I answered without hesitation. The officiant wiped his sweat, as if he had never seen such a scene. It was one thing for the groom to flee on the spot, but for the bride to switch grooms right, there was another. Mr. Quentin Vance, are you willing to take the lady before you as your wife, to stay by her side regardless of birth, old age, sickness or death, poverty or wealth, health or sickness, to grow old together? Quentin looked into my eyes, as if wanting to look deep into my soul. He pinched my fingers, first sliding the ring onto my ring finger, then used that low, mellow voice to say, I do. The Sterling parents couldn't watch any longer. They stood up directly and left with cold faces. Almost everyone stayed until the end of this absurd wedding. Even if they were extremely dissatisfied, they could only consider the patriarch's face. After all, Quentin was now the hottest candidate for heir to the Sterling family. From initial shock to joyful acceptance, the look in my father's eyes even held a bit of appreciation. Wendy, you were too risky. After the wedding, my father found me. The Winslow family saved face, but have you thought about it? If Quentin had refused you then, your situation would have only become more difficult. Dad, don't worry. I knew what I was doing. What he didn't know was that, although I was nervous, I wasn't betting entirely blindly. If I didn't have even a shred of certainty, I wouldn't have been so impulsive. Knock, 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 the door was knocked. Father and I looked over. Quentin stood there, leaning against the doorway, a half-smile hanging from the corner of his eye. Am I interrupting? Father coughed lightly and immediately said, I'll be going then. He very sensibly left space for the two of us. When passing Quentin, he nodded as a greeting. Unexpectedly, Quentin naturally called out, Take care, Dad. This earth-shattering address almost made both my father and me stumble. I stared at him with wide eyes in surprise, only to see Quentin sending my father off with a calm face. Before leaving, Father looked at me again, seemingly wanting to say something, but after a final glance at Quentin, he said nothing and strode away. I walked behind Quentin, thought for a moment, and whispered, Thank you for the wedding just now. He didn't turn back. With his back to me, hands lazily in his pockets, Didn't you say you knew what you were doing? Why say thank you? His voice was indifferent, seemingly wanting to draw a line with me. I pursed my lips. It seemed he had heard my conversation with my father just now. Quentin turned around to look at me. However, you are indeed bold. Did you really not think about the consequences at all? I looked into his eyes and clenched my fist slightly. Thinking of our current identities, I let out a breath. I heard your conversation with the patriarch that day. We were already husband and wife. Regardless of the process, we were now grasshoppers tied to the same rope. I thought I indeed had an obligation to be honest with him. Sure enough, he frowned slightly. What did you hear? The patriarch originally intended for you to marry me. He raised an eyebrow, expressing interest, letting me continue. The outside world thinks the patriarch would let his heir marry into those prominent families to consolidate the Sterling family's power. That's why everyone frowned upon Simon being with me. His family even hoped I would never wake up so they could choose a daughter-in-law approved by the patriarch. But Simon insisted on marrying me, cutting off their thoughts, thinking he would be at a disadvantage in the succession battle from then on. His gaze slowly became serious as I continued, but actually, the patriarch never intended for his heir to marry into so-called prominent families. That would only diminish the Sterling family's power and voice. He originally hoped you could unite with the Winslow family and marry me. It would save the Sterling family a lot of trouble. Even without much assistance, a wealthy family like the Sterlings doesn't actually need help. It's just those power-hungry children wanting to unite with outside forces to carve up the patriarch's territory. But the patriarch doesn't want to be carved up, so I was the best choice. I was also surprised when I heard them talking that day. I didn't expect so many twists and turns. Actually, The person who married me was the one most likely to sit in the heir's seat. Although the Winslow family was also a prestigious family, we had declined for many years. If not for the engagement with the Sterling family, we would have been kicked out of the circle long ago. It could be said that we posed absolutely no threat to the Sterling family's control. But on the other hand, our Winslow family was still a prominent household. Although fallen, the foundation was still there, and the parents were very attentive to their children's education. It was much better than finding an outsider. So viewing it comprehensively, I was the best choice. It was precisely because I knew this that I had the courage to walk toward Quentin when Simon fled the wedding publicly. But I was also a bit uneasy inside because I wasn't sure how great his desire for power was. After all, replacing the nephew at his wedding and marrying his bride this matter was simply too shocking to the world. But close call, I won the bet. Sure enough, Quentin squinted at me, his eyes full of amused scrutiny. It seems I underestimated you. He wrapped his arm around my waist, pressed me directly into his arms, and lifted my chin. You are my wife from now on, Wendy. This sudden intimacy made me subconsciously step back. But Quentin wouldn't let me hide, trapping me directly between a wall and his embrace. Behind was the hard wall, in front was his embrace like a fortress of iron and copper. I was confined in this airtight aura, covered all over with his scent. Quentin? I struggled uncomfortably. Let go of me. Just then, my phone rang. Quentin took out my phone right in front of me. The name Simon danced on the screen. My breath hitched, and inexplicably, I felt the illusion of guilt, like being caught cheating. Seeing Simon's name, the heat in my body was extinguished, as if someone had poured a basin of cold water over my head. I would never forget the scene of him leaving me at the wedding venue for Grace. But I also wouldn't forget the kindness of him caring for me carefully by my hospital bed for 3 years. He just didn't love me anymore. Or perhaps he just fell in love with someone else. I couldn't blame him, but I also couldn't forgive him. My hesitation was fully captured by Quentin's eyes. Holding my hand, he passed the phone to my face. Answer it. His tone was hard, it was an order. I frowned. I don't want to hear his voice right now. Quentin lifted my chin. Don't want to or don't dare to? I pursed my lips and didn't answer. Quentin smiled mockingly, tapped his finger, and answered the call directly. My eyes widened instantly. Before I could react, Simon's voice came through. Wendy, are you there? My chest heaved violently, overwhelmed by intense emotions. I wasn't ready to face him yet, but Quentin forced me to. Looking up, I crashed into his deep eyes. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Simon, how is the situation on your end? He paused, seemingly hearing the coldness in my tone. Wendy, I'm sorry. I will make it up to you properly and compensate you with another grand wedding. I shook my head. No need. It really wasn't necessary. The wedding continued, I just married someone else. Don't be angry with me. I know what I did was wrong, but Grace's situation was urgent. I just didn't want to watch her die. His tone was full of guilt. Wendy, I want to marry you. Wait for me to come back, okay? Before his voice fell, a painful moan from Grace suddenly came from the other end. Simon's voice immediately became anxious. Wendy, wait for me to handle Grace's matters. I'll come find you immediately. With that, he hung up the phone directly. My eyes dimmed along with it. Having loved for so many years, it was impossible to say I wasn't sad at all. Simon and I were childhood sweethearts. From the very beginning, he was my destined fiancé. From a very, very young age, he would announce to everyone that I was to be his wife. Even during the 3 years I was a vegetable, he didn't give up on me. He just had a change of heart. Very sad. Quentin lifted my chin, forcing me to look into his eyes. I don't need a wife who feels sad for another man. I shook my head, looking at him. Give me a little time. I'll only give you 3 months, he said. Marrying you indeed had considerations of interest, but I don't intend to divorce. His tone was cool, but mixed with some complex emotions. 3 months to sort out your feelings, then be with me wholeheartedly. Almost overnight, the entire city knew about my marriage to Quentin, except for Simon. After fleeing the wedding that day, he hadn't appeared in public. I heard he had saved Grace and successfully dealt with the kidnapper. The one who kidnapped her was the man who abused her 3 years ago, her boyfriend at the time. After they broke up, he was sent to prison. Now that his 3-year term was up, he came out to harass Grace again. Grace couldn't bear the harassment and asked Simon for help. Simon helped her resolve it a few times. Perhaps it was during this back and forth that the foundation of their feelings was laid. Even Simon himself didn't realize he had fallen in love with Grace. He just wasn't willing to give up his commitment to me. He said that after he handled things, he would come back to marry me immediately. But in reality, he stayed by Grace's side for 7 whole days, accompanying her in the hospital to recover from her injuries and adjust her mood. He wasn't even willing to think about the consequences of me being left at the wedding, nor was he willing to spare a moment to check on me, not even once. When he was by Grace's side, he had completely forgotten me. A week was enough for me to adjust my mindset. I moved into Quentin's home. Almost the entire Sterling family lived in the same estate, the grounds shockingly large. I originally thought he also lived with the Sterlings, but unexpectedly, Quentin had already set up his own household. I had worried that if I lived in the Sterling house, sooner or later I would run into Simon, which would be awkward. Now that was good. No need to worry about such things. At first, everyone wanted to laugh at me, to see how I, a vegetable who woke up after sleeping for 3 years, would handle myself after being abandoned by Simon. But now, everyone began to anticipate Simon's reaction. Finally, on the 8th day, when Simon finished dealing with Grace's affairs and came back to find me, he suddenly discovered that the wedding had continued all along, only the groom had changed. For the past few days, Quentin and I had been sleeping in separate rooms. Tonight, Quentin suddenly knocked on my door. "Is there something wrong?" I looked at him. He walked in, said nothing, and closed the door. "Simon is back, you know that, right?" My eyes shifted. Of course I know. My friends in the circle had long sent me various messages. Some genuinely cared about me, others just wanted to watch the drama. Naturally, news of Simon was told to me immediately. "Any thoughts?" He looked into my eyes. I shook my head. "What thoughts could I have? What's done is done. He and I are long past. To me now, he's just my husband's nephew." My words seemed to inexplicably please Quentin. His eyes softened. "Good, it's good you know your position. Our status is special. I hope every meeting you have with him in the future goes through my permission. Of course, it's best not to meet again." He looked calm, but I saw the turbulent undercurrent beneath his calm eyes. Tonight, he slept holding me. I lay in his arms, daring not to move a muscle. Finally, just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard him whisper in my ear, "It's okay if you can't sleep now. You can sleep on the plane tomorrow." I looked at him groggily. "Are we going somewhere tomorrow?" "Of course, our honeymoon." He stroked my hair. Miraculously, I fell asleep just like that. When I woke up the next morning, he had already organized his attire and packed the luggage. "Let's go, Mrs. Vance." I originally thought this was just a normal honeymoon trip, but when I got downstairs and saw Simon's car, I looked at Quentin with some surprise. Seeing us come out, Simon opened his car door directly. "Wendy." He called my name with an urgency like never before. I was about to get into the car with Quentin to leave for the honeymoon. "Don't go down to see him." Sensing my movement, Quentin suddenly grabbed my neck with some anger. "What did you promise me yesterday? Don't see him. You knew he would come find me today?" "Of course." He stroked my chin. His voice was cold, but I could hear the suppressed anger within. "Wendy, I hate broken promises the most. So don't get out of the car, don't go see him." These were clearly threatening words, yet I heard a trace of nervousness in them. I took a deep breath and said, "Don't worry, I won't go out." I didn't want to see him anyway. I sat in the car, motionless, watching Quentin get out. The car windows were one-way glass. I could see outside, but outside couldn't see in. So Simon never knew that I was looking at him from a place not far away. This was the first time I saw him since he fled the wedding. He looked much more haggard, his beard unshaven, his clothes disheveled. I didn't know if it was because of staying by Grace's side or because he was too worried about her, so he neglected his appearance. Although I had decided to give up on him, thinking about this still made me feel a bit bad. I took a deep breath to adjust my mood, just in time to see Quentin walk up to Simon. "What do you want?" "I want to see Wendy." He grabbed Quentin's collar, staring at him dead on. "She said she would wait for me. She never said that." Quentin grabbed his hand directly and threw it off forcefully. "Tell me, who did she marry?" His eyes were red. "Is she doing this to spite me?" I frowned slightly. It seemed he still didn't know the person I married was Quentin. He was his uncle after all. His parents had intentionally hidden it from him. Since the whole city knew, they could hide it for a moment but not forever. I wondered if Quentin would tell him this terrible news to his face. He was silent for a few seconds, and sure enough, chose not to tell him at this time. Wendy is already married to someone else. It's useless for you to look for her. She won't have anything to do with you anymore. You're lying, she's just angry with me. I said I would come to marry her. Simon's voice trembled a little, but he was still confident in himself. We have so many years of feelings. When she became a vegetable, I took care of her for 3 whole years. She knows I love her. She's just angry I went to save another woman, so he knew everything. I closed my eyes, finding it incredibly ironic. Since he knew everything, he still chose to abandon me at the wedding venue. He wasn't wrong. We had so many years of feelings. He took care of me for 3 whole years and never gave up on me. If he had generously told me he had a change of heart, although sad, I would only have wished him well. He shouldn't have trampled my family's face underfoot in front of everyone like that. She won't forgive you. You understand her character better than I do, Quentin said, but from now on, you are no longer the person who understands her best. Simon wanted to question him further, but Quentin had already turned and got into the car. He separated me and Simon with a car door, preventing us from meeting. The moment he got in, he pulled me directly into his arms. If you dare look at him one more time, you're dead. It was completely a threatening tone, but I had clearly sensed his nervousness earlier. I looked at him with some confusion. I promise you, I won't have any relationship with him, nor will I affect the alliance between our 2 families, much less make you lose face, but I pushed him away abruptly, sitting up from him, straightening my clothes. Is it necessary to use the tone of lecturing a cheating wife to advise me? He narrowed his eyes, indifferent to my sarcasm, and even nodded somewhat agreeably. You're right, so don't have any contact with him. I was angry. I pushed him away at once, looking out the window, motionless. The car had already started. He didn't seem to want me to look at Simon again. I could only watch that familiar figure in the rearview mirror, left far behind, and said in my heart, goodbye. Goodbye, my boy. From now on, we are strangers. The honeymoon location was chosen in Las Vegas. I didn't expect such a romantic place. I thought you would pick a random place for business talks. Quentin glanced at me indifferently. How do you know this isn't a place for business talks? He booked the presidential suite on the top floor of the hotel. Downstairs was scenery that delighted the mood. I didn't intend to bicker with him and sat down on the large bed. He also rose from the computer, walked in front of me, and placed his hands on either side of me. Our wedding night doesn't seem to have started yet. Hearing this, I paused instinctively, looking at him with some resistance. Quentin lifted my chin directly. Wendy, I've already given you time. Don't forget, we are a legitimate married couple. I won't live like a monk for you. I know. I knew we wouldn't be a superficial couple, and I knew this day would come eventually, but I didn't expect the moment to arrive so quickly. He pressed me onto the bed and stripped away my clothes. I closed my eyes briefly and didn't resist. His tone was fierce, but tonight he was incredibly gentle, so gentle it made me dazed. The night was incredibly long. The physical touch made us more familiar with each other. This honeymoon actually gave me a feeling of becoming closer to him. His words often echoed in my mind. We are husband and wife, a community of shared interests. You have to believe I will never do anything to betray you. Compared to ethereal love, I actually found his words more convincing. On the day we returned to the country, we got off the plane and arrived at the airport, only to see a familiar figure. It was Simon. I took one look at him, and my expression changed immediately. During the honeymoon, Simon had been constantly contacting me. Annoyed, I changed my phone number directly. I didn't expect him to camp out at my flight. Seeing this, Quentin took off his coat directly and wrapped me in his arms, preventing Simon from seeing me. The nanny van was already waiting outside. I looked back at Simon, only to see more than one person there. Grace was also by his side, looking at him with red eyes. She's already married. Why are you so obsessed with her? She must be trying to anger me. Simon pushed her away at once, muttering to himself, "She's just angry that I abandoned her that day to save you. As long as I explain clearly to her that the person I love is only her, she will come back to me." Grace, having been kidnapped, looked to be in decent spirits. Probably because Simon had taken good care of her these past few days. I withdrew my gaze. Strangely, my heart no longer felt that heart-wrenching pain from before. Soon, we returned to the new house. It wasn't until I got out of the car that I suddenly realized I was holding hands with Quentin. This honeymoon, our relationship had developed rapidly. I let go of his hand with a blush. Quentin looked at me with some concern. Uncomfortable. No. Then why avoid me? He held my hand. Was I too unbridled recently? You just woke up from being a vegetable. I indeed should have restrained myself a bit. That's not the reason. I glared at him. I didn't know if he was teasing or genuinely worried about me. Quentin chuckled lightly and kissed the back of my hand. Tell me promptly if there's any discomfort. I know. I still wasn't quite used to him suddenly becoming so gentle. Just after returning home, my best friend called immediately. Do you know Simon has gone crazy looking for you? Chloe Summers, and I had been friends for years. Knowing I woke up, she was also very excited. She originally thought Simon and I would have a happy ending, but didn't expect such an outcome. She couldn't help but curse. Abandoning you at the wedding scene and running away, and to save another woman, I really don't know what's going through his head since he loves you so much. He shouldn't have done things to hurt you in the first place. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Hearing about Simon, I unexpectedly felt only dullness. He just hasn't realized that the person he loves is Grace. He just has an obsession with me, but I don't blame him. After all, he took care of me for 3 years. Once he figures it out, he won't come looking for me. Really. But looking at him, it really doesn't seem like it. Chloe shut her mouth abruptly and sighed. Wendy, you don't know how crazy he's been lately. He's searched the entire city to find you, almost turning the place upside down later. Someone leaked that you went on a honeymoon. He wanted to go abroad but was stopped at home by his parents. After quieting down for a few days, he started investigating the man you married, but found nothing seeing him so crazy. We didn't dare tell him who you married. But he seems to have vaguely guessed it. It just depends on whether he's willing to admit it himself. I shook my head. She sighed and hung up. Outside, a light rain suddenly began to fall. The light rain gradually turned into a storm, beating against the glass windows. I stood on the balcony looking down, but suddenly saw a familiar figure. Simon was standing there, letting the heavy rain drench him. My heart skipped a beat. My first reaction wasn't heartache for him, but a start of realization he might already know. But I laughed at myself again. What was there to be afraid of? Something the whole city knew, he would find out sooner or later. I had long been mentally prepared. What was there to be guilty about? I turned around and saw Quentin standing behind me, watching me silently. I thought he would be angry. Unexpectedly, he said nothing, just looked at me like that. After a long time, he said coolly, "If you want to see him, go see him." I shook my head, answering decisively, "I don't want to." Passing by him, Quentin grabbed my arm. "Go make a clean break." So that was his thought. I unexpectedly felt a sense of enlightenment. I looked at him deeply. I'm going to see him now. What if he pesters me? With me here, he wouldn't dare. Quentin's voice was cold and certain, even carrying a few hints of disdain, not taking Simon seriously at all. At the villa entrance, Simon was blocked outside the stairs. The iron gate railings, washed by the storm, gleamed with a strange metallic light, looking particularly dense in the darkness. He stood at the door in the rain, head hanging low, soaked through, looking like a stray dog. Standing at the doorway, I said softly, "Go back." Seeing me, his eyes suddenly lit up. He instinctively grabbed the gate bars. "Wendy, you're finally willing to see me?" I didn't move, meeting him through the curtain of rain. "You've seen me, go back." My voice was too cold. He gradually calmed down, looking at me with pitch-black eyes. "I'll leave if you come home with me." I suddenly smiled. In this stormy weather, I could actually still smile. "You should have heard. I'm already married. Going back with you isn't appropriate." His body instantly trembled slightly. When I came over, I had already noticed he was deliberately ignoring the fact that I was married. But stated so plainly by me, he naturally could no longer deceive himself. "Must you treat me this way?" A sob suddenly burst from his throat. "They said you are with my uncle." I kept refusing to believe it. "Even if you wanted to take revenge on me, you wouldn't choose such a method." I interrupted him. "Not for revenge on you, he was my best choice." I looked at him calmly. "Simon, perhaps you misunderstood. You ran away from the wedding. I was indeed very sad, but I hold no resentment toward you. I know you treated me well before, and I know you guarded me for 3 years. You were also good to my parents. So between us. Let's just leave it at this. We're even. He looked at me in astonishment, with an expression almost on the verge of collapse, so painful that I couldn't bear to look. But I still looked into his eyes and said, "This is the best outcome for us. Let's not meet again in the future." "Impossible," he rushed up and gripped my wrist. "Open the gate, let me in, I want to take you away. I know you're angry with me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you and gone, but I really had no other choice at the time. I know you wouldn't watch Grace die. You were very worried about her. You love her very much, you just don't realize it." I had decided to shatter his pretense, looking at him with incredible calm and peace. "Rest assured, I will bless you too." He almost collapsed. "I don't love her, the person I love is you, Wendy. Don't do this to me. If you don't love her, how could you choose her without hesitation between me and her? You should also know that it wasn't a life or death moment. Even with police, bodyguards, and many professional rescuers, it didn't require you at all. Yet you still chose to go. That's because in your heart, she is the most loved person. Nothing in this world compares to her safety, so you went. Even my face and dignity couldn't compare to her. Is this not love?" His face turned pale inch by inch as I spoke. In that moment, my heart ached too. Someone who loved me so much before had now shifted his love to another. It was impossible not to feel sad inside, but short-term pain is better than long-term pain. For me, immersing myself in sadness was the unforgivable thing. I had lost 3 years. In those 3 years, I made too many people who cared about me and loved me wait. This time, I couldn't let my own emotional problems drag them down. Clearly, Simon was no longer the person who loved me, or at least not the only person who would love me. He had fallen in love with someone else. I don't like her, he looked at me in panic. "Wendy, I have never liked her. I have always loved only you, really. Do you believe that yourself when you say it now?" Saying this, I looked behind him. Grace had appeared there at some point, looking at him with a hurt expression. "Simon, do you really not love me?" Her voice was hoarse, her face covered in rain. Simon saw her and was clearly stunned for a moment. Just that moment of stunned silence was enough to answer my question. I let go of his hand and said to him, "Go to her. The rain is too heavy. She was just rescued. Her body won't be able to take it." I wasn't generous enough to bless the two of them, but Simon had shown me great kindness after all. While I lay there for 3 years, he was the one constantly taking care of me. I didn't deny he loved me. Perhaps up to now, the person he loved most was me, but undeniably, he had indeed fallen in love with Grace too. I had always been a perfectionist when it came to love. I couldn't tolerate such things. This half-hearted affection wasn't what I wanted. Simon finally reacted, pushing Grace away violently and hugging me from behind. "I'm sorry, Wendy. I just pitied her. I'm really sorry. I will never leave you alone again. My heart only has you. You are the most important person to me. Don't leave." His voice choked with sobs. "If I knew going to save her would mean losing you, I absolutely wouldn't have left you." His words made Grace freeze completely. She questioned him with heart-wrenching screams. "I don't believe it, Simon Sterling. Look me in the eyes. Do you have absolutely no feelings for me? I know I shouldn't be with you, nor should I fall in love with you. But feelings aren't something we can control. Wendy just appeared in your life first. If not for her, we would be in love." "Shut up," Simon interrupted her furiously. "The only person I love is Wendy, and it will always only be her. It's forever impossible between me and you." "Stop deceiving yourself," Grace cried out. "You clearly love me. If you didn't love me, why would you abandon her at the wedding to come find me?" This was also what I had been asking him. Clearly, Simon couldn't figure out the answer himself, so he chose silence, only staring stubbornly at me. "Wendy, believe me." Just as his hand was about to touch me, a powerful force pulled me directly out of his embrace. I looked back and saw a handsome profile that was both familiar and strange to me. Quentin, looking at the man who suddenly appeared, I was a bit surprised. "Didn't you say you'd let me handle it myself?" Quentin didn't answer me. He simply held me aggressively in his arms, looking coldly at Simon in front of me. "Show some respect, she is your aunt." The word aunt provoked Simon immensely. He seemed completely unable to bear it, rushing up as if to fight Quentin. "What kind of relative are you? You knew I loved her. Why did you do this to me?" Quentin looked as if he heard something funny. "If you really loved her, how could you give me such an opportunity?" Simon seemed instantly frozen, all tears congealing in the rain. I didn't know if he shed tears, but looking at his crimson eyes, I still turned my head to the other side. Quentin held the umbrella over my head and glanced at him. "If you want to fight me, you're welcome anytime, but she is now my wife. Please don't disturb her casually in the future." With that, he took me straight back home. The door closed and overwhelming kisses surged, wrapping me up tightly and airtight. "Quentin!" Before I could call his name, I was kissed breathless by him again. That night, I couldn't escape and was thoroughly taught a lesson by him. I only remember him warning me fiercely in my ear, "You are not allowed to see him again." He confused me so much I didn't know where I was, only able to nod vaguely. After that night, Simon and Grace faded out of my life. I heard Simon fell seriously ill. That rainstorm consumed a massive amount of his energy. Those who originally wanted to laugh at us also shut their mouths one after another. Only Simon's parents found me, looking haggard and angry. "Wendy, you won, Mrs." Sterling sneered, her tone sarcastic, but the fatigue on her face betrayed her. "Simon is hospitalized, go see him." I frowned slightly. "He should have Grace accompanying him. At the very least, you are his family." "In his heart, only you are the most important." Mrs. Sterling almost gritted her teeth, her expression resentful. "Are you very proud? Even now, the only person he wants to see is you." I frowned. "But I don't want to see him." I said to her, "With the status between him and me, it's no longer appropriate to meet." They understood what I meant. I was now his aunt. We indeed shouldn't meet again. Mrs. Sterling's eyes turned red instantly. "You refuse to forgive him that much? What heinous crime did he commit for you to treat him like this?" I gave a bitter smile. "Perhaps he did nothing wrong. He just fled the wedding." Their expressions finally became ugly. "So what? That doesn't prove anything. He took care of you for 3 years. When you became a vegetable, he never despised you, nor was he with other women. Doesn't that prove his kindness to you? So I don't blame him for running away from the wedding." I said, "I don't blame him, but that's all. The feelings between us can't return to the beginning." My voice was very faint. "Please go back. It's impossible between him and me." Mrs. Sterling looked at me in disbelief, unable to communicate rationally anymore. Only then did Frederick step forward, his eyes cold. "Are you going to watch him die helpless? That's a bit serious." I said to him, "It's just a breakup. Do you want to pin his life on me?" Mrs. Sterling finally couldn't bear it anymore, crying to me, "Just go look at him once, I beg you, Wendy, don't be too excessive as a person." I sighed, feeling helpless. "Do you really want me to keep getting mixed up with him?" Neither of them spoke again, they fell silent. "You go see him." Mrs. Sterling made up her mind, interrupting me. "I only have this one child. Nothing is more important than his life safety." I nodded, agreeing to her request. My end with Simon was too sudden. Perhaps it was time to say goodbye to him properly. What none of us expected was that Quentin wanted to go with us. When Simon's parents saw Quentin in the hospital room, their faces turned green instantly. "Wendy, we asked you to come. Why did you bring him?" Quentin put his arm around my waist directly, looking at the two calmly. "She is my wife. Wherever she goes now, I have the right to ask." While Quentin dealt with them, I pushed open the ward door and walked in. Simon lay on the hospital bed, looking extremely weak. They didn't lie to me, he was indeed sick. Seeing me come, he coughed a few times and struggled to sit up. "Wendy, you came?" He gave a bitter laugh. "I thought you would never come to see me again." I nodded. "We should try not to meet in the future. This is the last time." "Why?" His eyes suddenly turned red. "Have you still not forgiven me?" I shook my head. "I never blamed you." But the moment the words fell, he seemed to hear something desperate and closed his eyes. "Don't say it, you definitely hate me." Because only hate implies caring. Not hating meant I had already let go. I was speechless, not knowing how to comfort him. After a long time, I whispered, "If you think I hate you, then let it be that I hate you. Why don't you hate me anymore?" He suddenly rushed up to hug me, his voice choked. "I did something to wrong you." "You should hate me," I smiled bitterly. "So you also know that publicly fleeing the wedding wronged me?" His body went stiff instantly, and he suddenly apologized to me in panic. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I beg you to forgive me, okay?" I said I've already forgiven you, did you forget? I smiled at him. I never blamed you in the first place. But the more I said this, the more desperate his expression became. "Then I don't want you to forgive me. Hate me, Wendy, I beg you, hate me." Why do you want me to hate you? I sighed. Our past was beautiful. I don't want to hate you, nor do I want to blame you. I bless you and Grace. He suddenly looked into my eyes like he found a lifeline. I have no contact with her anymore after that day. I drove her away. From now on, I will never pay attention to her affairs. I'm sorry, Wendy, really sorry. I shouldn't have treated you that way. I love you. You should know, how can she compare to you? I sighed. Don't lie to me anymore. You fell in love with her. I know I won't blame you. When we were together, you were very good to me and didn't fail me. When my life was uncertain, you were the one taking care of me constantly. So I bless you too. While saying this, I instinctively looked toward the bathroom because I knew Grace was right there. I knew Simon very well. He might feel he loved me very much, and I believed his love, but this love had already been split in half and given to another person. So I didn't want such love. I knew there was an outsider present, but I still said these words because I knew this was the last time. But Grace clearly didn't think so. The next second, she couldn't bear it and walked out of the bathroom. Wendy, you're too much. You don't deserve his love at all. Seeing her, Simon was also astonished. Why are you here? He immediately frowned, looking very impatient. Didn't I tell you to get out? After speaking, he looked at me carefully, as if afraid I would be angry. Wendy, I'm sorry, I didn't know she would be here. It doesn't matter. I shook my head and said to him, we have no relationship anymore. Even if you are with her, I won't say anything. I even smiled calmly. Of course, if you are with another woman, I will bless you more sincerely. After all, I glanced at Grace indifferently. I became a vegetable to save her. Grace stopped speaking immediately. After a moment, she said indignantly, that's what I owe you, but Simon doesn't owe you. Why do you treat him like this? He loves you so much, really. Didn't you just claim loudly that he had fallen in love with you but didn't realize it? Her expression changed instantly, speechless. No matter what, the only person I have loved from beginning to end is only you. Simon looked at me sorrowfully, his eyes red. I admit I had some pity for her, but compared to my love for you, it's not worth mentioning. You should understand me, I sighed. Simon, I'm sorry. I have never been able to accept love with any impurities. You should understand me. Simon finally couldn't hold back his red eyes. If I say I beg you to stay by my side. Grace also reddened her eyes. Just stay by his side, I beg you too. What kind of thing are you? What qualification do you have to beg her? The ward door was kicked open. Quentin walked straight in, sneered, and looked at Grace. The person least qualified to speak here is you. Grace jumped in fright seeing him. A moment later she recovered. It's you. You are Simon's uncle, the man who stole his beloved woman. I didn't steal her. He handed her over himself. Quentin's expression was faint. It was also because he believed the words of a stupid woman like you that he lost the person he loved. This is the fruit he planted himself. That's because Simon doesn't love me. If he loved me, I would do better than Wendy, Grace yelled. Wendy doesn't love him at all. She married you so quickly. From beginning to end, she didn't deserve Simon's love. Is that so? Fleeing the wedding publicly, letting everyone laugh at her, you think that is love? Quentin sneered. I don't deny he loved her very much before and is truly regretful now. But for Wendy, once a relationship has impurities and cracks, it can never be repaired. And you are that stain. Quentin looked at her almost cruelly. You are the person least qualified to say these words. No matter what, Wendy saved your life. You seem to have forgotten completely. If not for you, Wendy would have married Simon long ago. There would be no business of yours, nor any business of mine. She saved you, but ended up with nothing. Her fiancé fled the wedding publicly for you, yet you say she doesn't deserve him. The only person who truly doesn't deserve anything is you. You don't deserve Wendy's life-saving Grace. Grace's face turned pale at his words, her hand constantly pressing something behind her back. I narrowed my eyes and discovered she was actually live-streaming me. She stammered, unable to make a coherent argument. Quentin gave a cold laugh. I'm right, aren't I? If Simon were with anyone else, it wouldn't break Wendy's heart so much. But on the wedding day, he abandoned her to leave for you. How do you expect Wendy to feel? I didn't expect Quentin to understand me so well. His voice was cold. This is a double betrayal. She is your savior. Not only are you ungrateful, but you directly stole her man. Speaking of this, he glanced sarcastically at Simon again. I believe your sincerity toward Wendy, but your sincerity is a bit too ridiculous. Being moved by such a woman shows that you two are birds of a feather. Simon looked as if he had taken a massive blow, looking at me with utter remorse. I'm sorry, Wendy. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have abandoned you. I promise you I will never see her again. I really have no feelings for her. Maybe a little pity, but the person I truly love has always been only you. All feelings come from pity. I said to Simon, it's impossible between us now. Even Quentin understood me. I couldn't accept a love with impurities. Did he not know that? Simon suddenly looked at Quentin excitedly. What about him? Can he guarantee to love only you for this lifetime and never be distracted? He suddenly looked at me pleadingly again. Wendy, I will never make such a mistake again. Give me another chance. The person I want to spend the rest of my life with is only you, never anyone else. Did you really never love me? Grace looked at him, choking back sobs. Yes, Simon answered with absolute decisiveness. Never loved. Maybe there was pity, but I would never give up Wendy for you. Grace finally gave up hope and left, dropping her phone. The live stream interface was still running. Quentin cut it off immediately. Simon's face turned pale instantly, then he gave a bitter laugh. I actually lost you because of such a woman? Grace hid in the bathroom to live stream, wanting everyone to come and laugh at me, wanting to tell others that Simon had a change of heart. But she didn't expect the person being laughed at was herself. I've disliked Grace Green for a long time. You clearly saved her. Yet she stole your man and had no remorse, only knowing how to pretend in front of Simon. Chloe said indignantly. Luckily, her true colors are exposed now. Otherwise, I'd be frustrated for you. After that long talk all night, I hadn't seen Simon for a long time, but I heard he didn't get together with Grace. After that incident, Grace's reputation in the circle became terrible. She had begged Simon for help countless times, but Chloe told me Simon never paid attention to her again. Regardless, Quentin was his uncle after all. I originally thought we would meet occasionally, but unexpectedly, Quentin completely avoided opportunities for us to meet. I always thought my marriage to him was just a business alliance, but during our long time together, our relationship gradually improved. Actually, I also thought about what Simon said. Could Quentin guarantee to be single-minded toward me? I thought, precisely because I had no expectations of him, I didn't care about this matter. I didn't have much extra feeling for him originally. We got together just because it was suitable for marriage. Perhaps because we didn't step into marriage because of love, but had common interests and goals, without expectations, there naturally wouldn't be dissatisfaction. Only I didn't expect that he would give back a sense of security far exceeding expectations. Almost everyone laughed at him for being a 24-hour perfect husband. He never gave me any promises, yet he used practical actions to tell me he would only have me. I'm already in my 30s. Most of my time is given to work. Only a very small part can be given to life. Believe it or not, I don't have the extra energy to generate feelings for other women. Once, Quentin looked at me seriously and said, I'm not a person with abundant emotions. I don't have Simon's kindness to feel sympathy and pity for other women. I am indeed cold-blooded, but I will strictly not be cruel to you. When he mentioned kindness, he was being a bit sarcastic. I couldn't help laughing. All right, it's been so long, don't hold on to that matter anymore. Days passed slowly and warmly like this. I discovered I was pregnant. The arrival of this child made Quentin very happy. Many people also gradually forgot the past between Simon and me. I thought he should also move on. Later, at my child's first birthday party, Simon, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, finally appeared in front of me. He said nothing. He had cut his hair, looking like the young man from before, just a few degrees more weathered. He placed a gift in my hand. Quentin watched him warily, arm around my waist, not letting me have too much contact with him. Simon gave a faint smile and said, You don't have to be so nervous. I've already let her go. After speaking, he left the gift and departed. But when I opened the letter he gave me, my eyes suddenly reddened. He said, I let you go, but you are forever in the bottom of my heart. Wendy, when you were by my side, I was a person with abundant emotions. I could love and hate and sympathize with others, but I didn't expect this abundance would make us drift apart. Only after letting you leave my side did I completely become a hollow man, unable to muster love or hate. But when I realized this, it was already very late. I had thoroughly lost you. If I could do it all over again, He didn't continue writing the rest, and I didn't want to finish reading it. Yes, just as he said, it was already too late. I have my life, and he has his future. I will walk my path, without compromise and without regret.